The way to get your buyers on LinkedIn today, all the way through 2025, is completely different than it was last year or even a few years ago. Before, the old formula was simple. You post a bunch of value content, giving tips, tricks, advice. People connect with that. You have a DM conversation, and then maybe someone buys from you. But that does not work today anymore. In fact, the LinkedIn algorithms have completely changed. So the way you post content is completely going to affect who sees your content. The way you actually communicate with your audience is going to be different. Everything has changed. But it is still as easy as ever to get high paying clients from LinkedIn if you're doing the correct activities. So what I did was I held a full 1 hour training explaining everything: where to find your buyers on LinkedIn, how to create a high ticket offer, how to create the right kind of content that's going to get these people interested, how to book calls, how to convert them, you name it. It was all fully explained in this training. And because this training was such a success, I'm giving the recording away right now in this YouTube video. So I'm telling you, if you want to get more buyers from LinkedIn, sit through this entire video, take notes, and just apply it. You can get your next 5 buyers from LinkedIn much quicker than you think if you just apply the information that I teach you in this training. So without further ado, enjoy the recording.
If you've ever been to my webinars before, you know that I treat these like coaching calls, right? With my own clients, right? I'm not here to withdraw information or hold back information. I'm really here to give it all to you. So I'll give it all to you as we dive into this. If you do have questions, I promise you there'll be time at the end. I usually finish up around, about 10, 15 minutes before. So there's going to be ample time for questions. So you can pop them in the chat. You can pop them in the chat while I'm teaching, but I'll probably get around to answering them near the end of the call. So with that being said, let's dive in. So for a couple of things, for those of you who don't know me, let me give you a quick brief intro into who I am. I know most of you know me, but maybe there's some new faces here. My name is Sara Masadi. So I literally, you may have heard me say this before, eat, sleep, and breathe LinkedIn. I'm 30 years old now. I've been literally using LinkedIn as my number one marketing source since I was 22. I ran a marketing agency for 4 years, literally going out getting buyers for people just using LinkedIn organically. And now I run in a LinkedIn online coaching business, teaching people how to grow their coaching businesses to 6 figures and beyond. If you want to see some of our client results, you can kind of look here, kind of like splattered all over my profile. Go down here, you'll see a lot of them. So anyways, with that being said, just so you know, you're learning from someone who knows the stuff. And as you all know, for those of you who have been, or not all of you, for those of you who stick around to the end, I really want you to just stick with me to the very end of this training. And if you do stick with me to the end, I'm going to give you something. And that is, so this right here is my group coaching doc with all my clients, right? These are the people who have paid me money to literally be into my coaching program. So this is actually going to tie into the lesson today. So there was a lesson I gave. It was probably one of the best lessons I've ever taught. It was called How to Build an Emotional Connection with Your Audience that will essentially bring you more buyers on LinkedIn. So if you stick with me and you just stay to the end of this training, I'll give you this full lesson, right? All I ask is just stick with me to the hour. I'll make this as valuable as possible to you. Just stick with me. And then at the end of the training, you'll have this. Now, with all that kind of groundwork out of the way, let's officially actually dive into this training here. So I want to go into, like I said, the topic of this post today is how to get your next 5 buyers from LinkedIn. Now, I'm going to assume a lot of you are either kind of beginner phase or, still working it out. Now, the first thing you have to understand here is that from a high level, you have to understand this is all just like a video game, right? This entire client acquisition process on LinkedIn is just a video game, and your LinkedIn profile is the avatar. Imagine you're playing a video game and your LinkedIn profile is kind of the character that you're playing with. And you need to know how to use this character properly to go out and get buyers. You have to, once you look at it like this, then it's very easy to make moves, right? It's very easy to actually just start making a difference. Now, the whole idea of client acquisition, especially on LinkedIn, is that it's about developing a cult-like following. Now, I know this might have some kind of not negative connotation to it, the idea of having a cult, but it's not, right? The idea behind this is that, look, you can't, look at me, for example. Sure, you could look at me on the surface level and say, oh yeah, he's a LinkedIn coach. He teaches people how to get buyers. But that's actually not true. The reason people buy from me is because I sell them freedom. right? I create the opportunity of freedom in their minds, right? The majority of people who enroll in my program are either tired of their corporate job, are looking for a new business to start so they can get out of that 9 to 5 grind. A lot of people have already quit their job, looking to start their first business. There's a lot of people who are kind of just sick and tired of going to the office all day, driving 20 minutes to an office or whatever, coming back. They don't want that life. So they look at me as an opportunity of freedom, right? So this is what I'm saying. Like, you have to stand for something, right? And this is where the whole cult like following comes in. And the reason is that most coaches on LinkedIn, if you could break this down, like, don't quote me on these stats, but from what I see is like, 95% of coaches that I see are struggle because of this, right? I see all these career coaches online, who will post content being like, 5 tips to get your clients, or so 5 tips to land your dream job and all this kind of stuff. And the problem is that no one buys into that, right? Maybe in 2014, 15, you could have gotten away with content like that. But the thing is, remember this phrase forever: people do not invest in coaching, they invest into the coach, right? You are the product. You are selling yourself. You are selling access to yourself. And the only way you create access to yourself and demand for access to yourself is by developing a cult-like following. And with this being said, the way you do this, and believe me, we're starting high level, I'm going to get very granular in just a minute here, is you need to get them to buy into a vehicle or method, right? This is the most important thing. Look at me, for example. My vehicle and method that I teach is rooted in client attraction, right? And this leads to the next point here, which is you have to declare an enemy. You cannot be like passive when you're trying to offer your services or when you're trying to market yourself on LinkedIn, right? You cannot just be like, oh yeah, I'll help you land a job. You have to have some kind of angle that differentiates you. Now, don't create an angle for the sake of creating an angle. Like, for example, some career coaches I work with hate resumes. They're like, the idea of a resume is dead. This is how you get your dream job. And that's a very unique angle. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, right? I'm just saying they have an angle, right? Their method is, whatever, hypothetically cover letters instead of resumes. And then their enemy is the resume, right? If you look at anybody, whether it be a politician, some major leader in the history of time, they've been very good at being polarizing, right? So you have to find that polarizing angle. So again, looking at me, right? What do I do? My whole angle is I talk about client attraction, right? I talk about avoiding the whole idea of chasing your buyers and creating this ecosystem where they come into your world, right? And people buy into this, right? People are like, yeah, that's how I want to get my clients. And then the enemy for me is LinkedIn automation, right? Is all this kind of idea of buying these, illegal automation tools that message 1,000 people offering your services, and then maybe out of 1,000, one person says yes, and now you've burned 999 boats, and one person buys from you. Like, I don't believe in that. In fact, I go against that. I openly speak against that. So this is something you have to be very open about. So what I'm saying to all of you is pick your vehicle. Pick the vehicle in which you are going to be the message that you're going to portray, and then declare an enemy. You have to think about it. Now, it doesn't need to be like as polarizing as like, the US president or something like that, but you need to think of something that you stand for and something you stand against. For me, what I stand for is client attraction. And what I stand against is LinkedIn messaging automation, right? Very simple. And I preach this message all day. And remember this, I'll repeat this later in the lesson. The goal here is not to be liked by everyone. The goal is to be loved by a select few. Because I'm not going to go too much into this today, but you should be selling a high ticket service. What I mean by high ticket is that you should all be selling your services at least at like $2,500 or higher, right? That's how you can make a meaningful change into someone's life, all of that. So if the case is that you want to make $2,500, or if the case here is that you sell your services at $2,500, to make 10 grand, you only need to make 4 sales. So you don't need to please the whole world. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't require you having to message or like get everyone on board, right? There's people who disagree with my message and they're like, no, I don't like client attraction. I just like going out there and message 1,000 people. I'm like, cool, I'm not for you then. Right? I'm genuinely not for you, right? But all I need is a certain specific amount of people. So just understand, you're in the high ticket business space, so you don't need a lot of people coming to you, right? What you do need more than anything else is you need a select few people who love you and are willing to who are willing to jump in with you. Okay. Now, once you've gotten this, is everything clear so far from a high level what I'm saying? Yes? Okay, I see Dave and Patrick nodding. Okay, awesome. Awesome. Now, going on. Now, you have to bring them down the funnel of commitment. This is again where a lot of people lose, right? I see this happen all the time. And, don't feel guilty if this is you right now. But a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just post content and they'll say, oh, I post content consistently on LinkedIn, but I don't get buyers. And then they'll say, oh, I also, manage my inbox and I try and have conversations, but no one's really interested. The reason is because you don't bring them down the funnel of commitment, right? Look, you have to understand there's phases people go through. And this goes way beyond business. This almost goes in comes into life if you think about it, right? First, people become aware of you, right? First, they become aware of you. And don't worry, Lance. Well, I'm glad you mentioned this. We'll go right into this. So first, people become aware of you, right? They just become aware of your existence. Then you start to get them interested, and then you bring them down the funnel of commitment, right? And then once they get to the final spot, then they'll buy from you. So this is what I'm going to actually teach you in the actual, step-by-step terms of what to do. But just remember this: you have to get them through the funnel of commitment, and where they want to get to is you need to convert them into full-on believers. Okay, so now that we're done with the high level stuff, I'll actually go into the step-by-step process of what to do, how to do it, all of that kind of stuff. So now the actionable steps. What do you do to get people aware of you, right? And this should be a daily task, right? Because every day you need to get new and more people aware of you, right? Now, all they need to do, remember, the goal here is not to get them interested in buying from you yet. The goal is not to get them in a phase of oh, I should work with you or anything like that. That's later on. Don't even worry about that. Your job at the very beginning of this whole process is simply to get more and more people aware of you and your method, right? And how do you do that? What is the specific activity you should be doing? You should be adding connections every day, right? Go on LinkedIn, find out where your buyers are. Now, one thing to remember when you are adding connections, do not add by demographic. This is, again, another thing that people do that makes them lose. Let's say, hypothetically, your market is CEOs. And let's say you're, a high performance coach that helps them, reduce stress and save 10 hours in a week so they can spend more time with their family. The worst thing you can do is go on Sales Navigator or LinkedIn Advanced Search and go and add a bunch of CEOs from Dayton, Ohio, right? That's going to do no good to you because you don't even know if these people have the problem that you're solving. You legitimately don't even know if they have that. You're just taking blind stabs in the dark, hoping that somebody you add is actually going to end up being a buyer. You need to find people based on demand. And the way to do that is just go find communities and spaces where they are. Tell you two easy ways. Number one, go to LinkedIn groups. Go and find LinkedIn groups that are active, not dead groups. LinkedIn groups where there's a community, right? Of maybe CEOs talking about their personal life or CEOs talking about stress management. I guarantee you there's tons of groups. In fact, I can just show you right now, just to prove it all to you. So take a look at this. So if you go here, you type in stress, just type in CEO stress, right? Go on the search bar, type that in, type in CEO stress and go to groups. All right. So let's look here. So I'm looking right now and I can see, okay, idea grow without the grind. Okay, right here, look at this one. Just random, without even putting too much effort into it. CEO collab, idea and strategy, grow without the grind. Seems like a potential group I could go in and add people from. Do you see what I mean? Imagine me just finding, even though there's only 21 people in this group, the probability of me finding a potential buyer in this group is infinitely higher than me going into the search navigator and being give me, CEOs in Arkansas or give me CEOs in Japan. It doesn't make sense, right? This is the way to do it. And again, I literally took me 30 seconds to find this group. I'm sure if I put 10 minutes of my brain work into this, I could find much higher quality groups, right? So this is what you want to do. Now, remember, when you add new connections, as I said before, your goal here is not to get them into a buying state right away. Your goal is to get them aware, right? So tell them, so what I always tell my clients is, look, when you're adding these connections, sell them on your content, right? Don't tell them hey, I have this service that does XYZ. Just be hey, look, I post content talking about this. If you're interested, let's connect, right? Now, all of a sudden, if the person's looking at you, think about it. Let's go with this example here. Let's say, where was it? Grow without the grind. Let's say I add all 21 members. I know that the majority of the members in this group are CEOs who are obviously trying to grow without stress. Okay, fair enough. I would then go and add these people and say, hey, I create content on LinkedIn teaching CEOs how to continue to advance in their career while reducing stress. Think about that. Obviously they're going to accept. You're going to get a high probability of acceptance rates, right? Because these people are already interested in that topic versus you going to LinkedIn advanced search, typing in CEOs in like, Dallas and adding them. They're going to be like, well, I don't need that. I don't care about that. Like I have a good life. Like all's good. Now you've wasted that. So this is what I'm saying. Like basically what the whole point of why I'm emphasizing this so much is that you do not want to waste your time, right? You do not want to waste your time with these activities. This is why, some people spend 18 months and don't get a single client, right? The reason why is because they're doing the wrong activities. I talk to people all the time. I get on sales calls all the time and I ask them, they're like, oh, I'm doing everything I should be doing. I'm adding connections, I'm posting content, I'm making offers for sales calls. Nobody's buying from me. I look at their process and it's just a couple things. I'm like, well, no, you're adding from the wrong place. Your content's not good. And yeah, you're not preaching to anyone who's interested, right? Like at the end of the day, if you're having conversations or you're talking to people who don't have the problem that you solve, then you're wasting both of your times, right? So be very good about that stuff. Okay, carrying on. So now, once you add your connections, then you want to have, again, start having intro level conversations. Like if they accept your request, get to know them a little bit. I'm not saying pitch your offer or anything like that. You have to understand this is a process and it might take a little bit of like pickup time at the beginning, right? Where it's like, oh, I gotta, add all these connections. I gotta start these conversations. Nobody's in buying mode. But if you do this consistently, right, you're just gonna have a flow, right? By the time these people who you add today and have these kind of intro level conversations with, in 2 weeks, they're going to be in buying mode. And then you're going to have a whole new batch of people who just become aware of you again. So, you know what I mean? Like the gravy train keeps rolling. So this is why it's super important to make sure you're doing this on a regular basis, right? So carrying on. Now, the second phrase is after you've gotten people just aware, right? Aware of you, aware of your methods. Then you want to get people to develop an interest in you and your method. The only way people are going to develop an interest is by consistency, right? You cannot post. I'll just be completely frank with you all. You cannot post once a week on LinkedIn and expect yourself to run a six-figure business on LinkedIn. It's not feasible, right? You need to be pumping out every day, at least Monday to Friday, once a day, right? It's not that much work, but it's super important that you're pumping out. Now, this is what this is really the key to creating content. If you want to create content that actually will get your buyers, your content needs to be about you. This is why, like, again, I don't want to put anybody on blast here, but if you go on your LinkedIn feed right now and you start scrolling, the majority of content that people are posting is terrible. It's not that it's terrible value, it's that it's not the right kind of content that attracts buyers. People, like, I see career coaches every day being like, here is how to land your next dream job in tech. 5 things, find recruiters, find this, do this, do this. And it's not that the information is bad, but the thing is that people don't know, they don't trust you yet. Remember this at the beginning, right? Just remember this as a beginning phase. First, just if you can like write this down, this will serve you well for the rest of your life in business and online marketing. First, people pay you for what you will do for them. Second, they pay you for who you are. Or sorry, first they pay you for what you do for them. Second, they pay you for what you know. Third is they pay you for who you are. What you do, what you know, who you are, right? This is why a lot of people look at like someone like Tony Robbins, right? And they'll look at Tony Robbins and be like, oh, well, he's saying like, here's 5 ways to reduce stress, right? And maybe I should post the same content. It's because he has established such a name for himself that he could literally he could open up a course tomorrow on literally anything. He could open up a course tomorrow on drinking, what kind of water you should be drinking, a $5,000 course, and people would buy it instantly because of who he is. But we're not at that level yet, right? You may not be at that level, so you can't emulate him. Instead, you need to create content to get people to trust you and like you and believe in you. This is why the kind of content you should be creating are stories, backgrounds, experiences. If you look at the majority of my content on LinkedIn, it's just me talking about my own life experiences. It's like, oh, I blew all my sales calls doing this. Or, oh, when I was 21 years old, this was the biggest mistake I made. Oh, I was speaking to a career coach this week and her business struggled because of this. So remember this. People hate to be told what to do, but they love to hear about how you did it. They love to hear about how you did it. So just talk. Believe me, you're way more interested than you think. And they don't need to be some grandiose rock bottom stories about like, like how you like came out of poverty and built a life for yourself. Like, I mean, if you have that story, share it. But it could be as simple as, this one story, I made $15,000 from this one story I posted. And it was, I walked into a Starbucks. This was a post I made I think like about a year ago. I walked into a Starbucks. I heard someone talking about ChatGPT, right? Like this old couple. They were like probably in their 70s or 80s. And I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. I didn't know that ChatGPT has like made its way all the way to like, the older generation. No offense to anyone who's 70 or 80. But my whole point is that I created a post on this and I was like, oh, I was in Starbucks today. I saw this older couple talking about ChatGPT. I found it very interesting. It inspired me to create a lesson on how to use ChatGPT to create content on LinkedIn. If you like this kind of content, or if you want access to this training, just comment below. I took this small story, turned this into added a quick call to action at the end. I ended up booking 6 calls, I believe, and 3 people bought, each person paying me $5,000. I made 15 grand from a single post doing that, right? But had I reversed this and said, ChatGPT is super important. You guys need to get on it. If you're not on it, it can affect your business. Make sure you're doing it. I have a training that can teach you how to do it. I probably wouldn't have booked a single call, but it was the story I told. So get good at telling stories. If you look at the best leaders in the history of time, they're all great storytellers. So your content needs to be elite at storytelling, right? You have to be a really good storyteller. Once you start getting people coming into your wake, coming into this, once you start publishing, people are going to start to connect with you. They're going to say like, oh, Dave, man, your story about XYZ, like, oh, I totally related to it. Oh yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. When you talked about when you were like struggling with this, yeah, man, that's where I'm at right now. Right? This is where people are going to connect with you. This is where the cult-like following comes in. Right? And then I'm telling you, but you just got to keep pumping out these stories. Again, they don't need to be rock bottom, like, poverty to riches stories, but they need to be something that relates to you, your offer, has a message, and then go from there. Does that make sense in terms of the content, what I'm saying? Yes. Okay. I see some heads nodding. All right. Good. All right. Now, once you start to post this kind of content, I'm telling you, first of all, you got to be doing this all in congruence, right? Adding your connections, starting these conversations. Once you start to do this, you're going to start to see naturally people are going to start to be more interested in you, right? This is great, right? People are going to start to show a little bit more interest. They might DM you. They might say, oh, hey, I like your content, or hey, this is good. This is great. But the next thing you got to remember here is that, going back to what I said earlier, you need to bring them down the funnel of commitment, right? Posting LinkedIn content is good, but it's not necessarily enough to get someone to buy from you just then. It might be, but it's not deeply enough. This is why you need to have deeper level content to build further trust. I'll be completely honest with you. This is why I run these webinars, right? I want to build further trust with you, right? You probably have seen my content and you're like, oh, well, yeah, this guy seems to know what he's talking about. I like his stuff, makes a little bit of sense. But what ends up happening, and clearly, is I run these webinars, I have your attention for 1 hour. I can give you further access to me, right? Now you can see how I teach. Now you can see how I talk. Now you can see how I act, right? You can hear the tone of my voice. You can see whether you connect with me deeper or not, right? This is why I run these webinars every month, right? And then naturally, at the end of the webinar, some people end up buying, some people, a lot of things happen, right? Like our business always, I'll tell you, just like, from a pure business perspective, every time I run a webinar, our income shoots up as a business. Shoots up. People buy, people refer people say, oh, people end up like, even if someone watches this webinar today and maybe they're like, oh yeah, this, I've planted a seed essentially. They're like, okay, cool. And maybe in 2-3 months they come and they're like, yeah, this is exactly what I need. Right. And this all happens because I'm pushing you down the funnel of commitment. Right. So I'm not saying you need to necessarily run webinars, but you need to push people down a funnel of commitment, right? Your LinkedIn content and just hoping they're going to buy from that is like, it can happen and it will happen. It's just a much smaller percentage, right? So you really want to make sure that you're actually speaking to people. You're speaking to people, or you're getting people more in, like, in, I don't want to use the word indoctrinated because it has such a negative connotation, but you're getting people more bought in to you, right? You bought into your methodologies, which is exactly what I'm doing, which is what you're doing. Now, again, I'm not saying you just need to run webinars. You can have a decent funnel, right? So again, if you look here, let me show you something right now. if you look at my profile, and this is kind of where the whole funnel starts here, right? So the webinar is one thing, and obviously you guys know this works because you're all sitting here listening to me right now. But if you look at my profile right now, with all the content that I'm posting, if you notice, I don't really offer my services in my content. I'd say maybe like 2% of my posts talk about my actual services. The rest of my content, of what I'm publishing, all I'm trying to do with my content, very simply put, is I'm taking all this traffic, right? And we do okay. We get about, 10, 15,000 views a week on our content, very transparent with the numbers here. My goal from all of this content that I'm publishing on LinkedIn is just to get you to come look at my profile, right? I want you, and this is naturally what happens. Think about the natural progression here. When you see a good piece of content on LinkedIn, and you're like, oh, this is interesting. What are you going to do next? Probably check out that person's profile, right? Right? Like it's just a natural thing. Like, who's this guy? Like, who is this lady? Who is this person that's creating this kind of content? Then this is where the funnel starts again, right? What I do, I'll publish all this content every day on LinkedIn. They'll come to my profile. Now, my profile, remember this, your LinkedIn profile is like your landing page, right? And the purpose of a landing page is to direct someone to a course of action, right? And this is what I'm doing every day on LinkedIn. I publish content every day, get them to my LinkedIn profile. Now, when you come onto my profile, what are you going to see? All right, Michael Barris talks about, how what was work with me. Amy Hendrickson made 10K in a month. Jason Lum. You see all these kind of like great results on my profile, and you're like, all right, well, this seems promising. What's this all about? Then you're like, I want to learn more. What's the first thing you now see on my profile? Learn how to land 5 new clients this month from LinkedIn without wasting time. And I push them to this free training video I have. Right? I say, hey, if you want to learn how to get your next clients, they'll put their name and email in there, boom, and they get to watch this free training video. Now, this video here is not a sales pitch, right? It's very similar to this webinar, right? Maybe more condensed because it's only a 10-minute video here, but I'm teaching people. I'm saying, all right, here's what you got to do to get your next buyers on LinkedIn. I'm explaining, I'm adding value, I'm pushing them down the funnel of commitment. Now, obviously this takes skill to be able to create like a VSL. This is called a VSL. VSL stands for video sales letter for any of you that don't know, but it's just marketing term for just a video, right? A marketing video to get people interested. You're showing them, you're getting them to believe in your method. All I'm trying to do with all of this stuff is just to get you to believe in my method further and further and further. All right. Believe in what I'm doing, right? Believe in my vehicle, right? So this is what I'm doing. Then, like I said, I teach this video. And the video, again, is 10 minutes. And the only offer I make is at the very end of the video. I say, hey, look, if you like what you learned in this video and you want to speak to me one-on-one to learn about how I can help you implement the same system for yourself, book a call. Button pops up here. Or where's the button? I guess it needs to hit the 5-minute mark. Button will pop up here. It'll take them to it'll take them to booking a call with me. And then boom, a call is now booked, right? As soon as this timer runs out, because I need them to watch a few minutes before I need them to watch enough again, so they go down the funnel of the content funnel. There you go. So now the button pops up. Schedule my call now, right? They come here, they get onto my calendar. I ask them a couple qualifying questions. Where they're at with their business, all that kind of stuff, and then bang, I now have a qualified sales call in the calendar. Right? So do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is how I'm doing it. And if you notice this whole process that I'm showing you here, there's very little friction. I'm not dragging people by their teeth saying, you got to book with me, or, like I'm not chasing people. They're coming to me. They see my content. They're like, okay, this content seems legit. Okay. Then they're like, all right, well, now they're coming to these webinars. They're watching these free training videos. They're literally going down the funnel of commitment. And then usually after watching either my training video or coming to this coming to this webinar or watching this training video, that's enough. Then they get on the phone with me. They're like, I've been following you for a while. Love what you stand for. I'm bought in. Let's go. And then they end up enrolling, right? And then we work together, get them amazing results. And then you just go on from there. So this is what I'm saying you all have to do. You cannot rely on your LinkedIn content alone. Your LinkedIn content is just a stepping stone, right? Now, I'm not saying to stop your LinkedIn content. If you stop your LinkedIn content, then nothing works, right? But there's phases to this. First, you're adding the connections, right? Once you bring in the connections, then you start to create really great content that actually starts to build people. You start building deeper connection with you and your audience. Then once you do that, then it's like, okay, cool. Now you push them down the funnel of commitment. And then it's all towards getting people on a call. Does that make sense so far, what I'm saying, everybody? Okay, see some heads nodding. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. Awesome. 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 Once we've gone down the funnel of commitment, now, like I just showed you, it's about booking calls. Never let this phrase leave your mind. In this high ticket coaching business world that we are in, that your income is directly correlated to the number of sales calls you schedule. I promise you this. There is no other way to look at this in this equation, right? If you want to make more money, you need to book more calls, right? I can tell you right now, I can look at any one of your businesses right now, and I can tell you why you are or why you are not making 10 to 20K a month, right? It's a very, very, very simple formula, right? And at the end of the day, the number one thing to remember is that you need to be booking more calls, right? Now, at the end of the, and if you really what I want to emphasize here is that you need to look at your business like a system, right? And there's four parts to the system. Number one is your offer. You need to make sure, first of all, you're selling something that people actually want to buy. Number two is that you have the right audience looking at you. Number three is that your content is good enough to get these people interested, connecting with your message. And number four is that you have a good conversion system, meaning that you're booking calls and you're converting calls. If you separate your business and just kind of put it as piece one, piece two, piece three, piece four, you know what I mean? Like step one, two, three, four, it becomes super easy. I'll tell you a funny story, actually. This was back in 2018. I was running a marketing agency at the time, and I had a business coach, right? And when I had this business coach, I was in a real slump with my business. I remember I went 0 for 10 on my sales calls in a week. And I was at like a mental breaking point with myself. I was like, oh God, like this is not working. I don't know what to do. So I call my business coach and I tell him the whole story. I'm like, hey man, like I don't know if I'm venting. I don't know what's going on. I think I need to shut down the business. I need to figure out a new offer. And he's like, hold on. Tell me what's going on. And I was like, well, look, I booked 10 calls this week. I didn't close a single one. Nobody was interested in what was going on. He's like, dude, I just need to do something else. And you know what he said to me? He's like, so let me get this straight. You booked 10 calls and you didn't close one. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Do you see the problem here? And he's like, dude, your business is perfectly fine. I was like, what do you mean? He said, you got 10 people to the finish line. You just couldn't close. He said, your only problem in this process is that you suck at closing. Figure out how to close better on these sales calls. And then the rest of it takes care of itself. He's like, you have an offer. People are interested. You're creating content. You got them on the calls. He's like, literally, you just have one small thing to fix. He gave me a sales script. True story. Gave me his sales script. He's like, memorize this, practice in the mirror, do this entire script. I was like, okay, next week I booked 6 calls, I closed 3 sales. Take in that I was literally at the point of like, I was at a breaking point. I literally thought my business was finished. I thought like, I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur. This is too hard. Meanwhile, I talked to this guy, he finds this one kink in my business. He's like, fix this, I fix this. And I think the next week I made like 10K or something like that, right? This was back in 2018 when I was running my marketing agency. So my point to all of you is that it's probably the same for all of you. If I could tell you if I'm looking at your business, it's probably like 1 or 2 kinks. Unless you're starting from zero, then we got to build it all up. That's fine. But it's probably just a couple kinks that you're missing that you need to fix. Now, maybe it is as easy as 1, 2, 3, like take my script, memorize this, and you're all good. Or maybe there's a little bit deeper things to it, like, oh, you got to create better high level content. But when you look at your business like a system, it's foolish to say your business doesn't work, right? It's foolish to think like that. You just got to figure out what part of the system doesn't work and then tighten that, right? It's like driving your car to the mechanic. Like, I mean, I don't trust a lot of mechanics, but my point is like, there's probably a couple of things. It's not that your car's broken. It's maybe you're like, what did they say? Your air filters or something needs to be changed, right? It's just a small thing you need to fix there. So anyways, just a little antidote for all of you with that. So just make sure you have that stuff dialed in. So next thing, now going to what I was saying earlier, right? Is that more calls equals more money. Now this is, if you're not booking enough calls, yes, you have to take a step back. Just always reverse engineer the system. If you want to troubleshoot your business in a really simple way, reverse engineer it, right? If you are not booking enough calls, if you're not closing enough sales, right? If you just be very honest with yourself. If you're not booking enough sales, take it a step back. How many calls am I booking? If you're not booking any calls, okay, cool. How many offers am I making? If you're not making enough offers, then you got to be like, okay, how much content am I publishing? All right, if you're not publishing enough content, how many connections am I adding? Right? It's always going to be just something along the lines that's not working. Right. And then also you have to look at like what's in your control and what's out of your control. Like I fundamentally know I cannot control how many people will buy from me from this webinar. I have no control over that. I can't go into your pockets and pull out a credit card and run it, right? But what I do know is that I can perform. I can control how I can perform. I can control the offers I make. I can control a lot of things. So you have to look at the factors in your control, right? You can't control the views that you get on your content. You cannot control how many people book a call with you. There's a lot of things you can't control. But what you can control is how many offers you make, how much content you publish, right? How good the content is, how those sales calls go. So always reverse engineer it. So if let's say you wanted to make, let's say 10K in a month, let's just put this down here and say your goal is 10K per month, right? And I'm just going to work with round numbers. Let's say your price point for your services is 2,500, right? 2,500, right? So therefore goal, or I guess sales needed, 4, right? It's very simple math here. Now we're just going to operate under the assumption you have a close rate of 25 is actually, it's average, but let's go even more below average. Let's say 20%, right? So that's, if you're closing at 20%, call me, I can help you fix that. But point here is that if you're closing at 20%, 24% here, that means 1 out of every 5 calls turns into a buyer, into a paying client, right? So for you to make $2,500 equals 5 calls, right? Then if you want to make 10 grand, 10K, you multiply that, that's 20 calls a month, right? 10K equals 20 calls a month. That's it, right? Then again, divide that by 4. That's 5 calls per week or 1 call per day. Scheduling 1 call per day is not that hard. I promise you, it is not that hard. It can be done by you just doing the right activities. So now you got to figure out what activities must you do to get 1 call per day. And this goes back to everything we just went in, right? Add the right connections, create the right kind of content, right? Do all of these things. And then all of a sudden the machine will start taking care of itself, right? So does this make sense on getting yourself to a 10K business, building in clients, getting 5 clients a month? Like is this all clear enough to you guys on what to do? All right. Yeah, I truthfully mean it when I say this, that, building a 10K business is more than viable, right? It's more than viable. It's probable. The reason people don't do it is just because they're wasting time doing the wrong things, right? And once you figure out the right activities to do, the business becomes very easy to operate, right? Then it just becomes looking at adding the right connections, figuring out the right kind of content to create, pushing them down the funnel of commitment, booking those calls, closing them. So if your goal is genuinely to make 10, 20K a month and you're not there yet, then evaluate it. Look at your business like a system and then go from there, right? So I'll wrap it up there because I want to leave ample time for questions and everything like that. But a couple things that I want to, just go over before we get into the questions here is, so for all of you that attended today, obviously, as promised, I'm going to give you that full training. Well, just all I ask is that, because we have a lot of people in here, if you stayed from the start to the end, just send me a message at the end of this chat, or at the end of this call here saying, hey, Sarim, I was here till the very end. Do you mind sending me that training that you promised everybody for who stayed until the end? And if any of you popped in, it was this training here, how to build an emotional connection with your audience that will bring you more buyers. This ties into teaching you really the right kind of content you should be creating that will bring you your buyers, right? It's not going to teach you how to get likes and comments on your posts. It's going to teach you how to get buyers from your content, right? So that's it. So again, with that being said, I appreciate you all staying with me here for this call. I'm glad it was really valuable. I saw a lot of you really engaged today as well. With that being said, I'm currently actually opening enrollment for my coaching program right now as well. So for those of you who are actually looking for added support, right? If you want me to work with you one-on-one in a group capacity and one-on-one, I'll give you all the details of my program as well later, but I'm opening enrollment. I want to bring in 5 more people this month who want to work with me. And really what I'll do is my goal is to help you get your business to a 6-figure to multi-6-figure level as quickly as possible. So what I've decided to do for myself is, because, personally, I just like to work with people who are really committed and ready to go. So obviously if you're attending this webinar, it's easier for me to work with you because you're literally trying to learn and all of that. So for that reason, I've decided to add a bonus. So I'm actually adding, normally my coaching program is 6 months, but I've actually added, for everyone who's here today, I'm adding an extra month of coaching to the program. So it's a 7-month program. So you get a 1 month of coaching with me for free. So if you want to just learn about the program, what it's like to work with me, I'm going to put my calendar link in Juanita is going to pop, she's my business partner. She's going to pop in my calendar link in there. So if you want to speak with me one-on-one, just to learn about it, it's going to be no pressure. At the end of the day, right? This call is going to be more value to you than anything else, right? This call is going to be me sitting down with you, learning about your business, figuring out where you are right now, what's working, what's not working, and then creating a game plan of where you need to go. And then again, if I feel I can help you, right, and I can genuinely get you to where you want to go, I'll make you an offer for the program. I'll tell you about all the details of all that. So at the end of the day, there's nothing to lose by booking this call. You're still going to get, you can literally take the strategy I give you and run with it. Hopefully, we work together, but either way, it's all good. So I would really recommend everyone to book calls with me, and then we'll go from there. So with that being said, I'll open it up for questions, and then we'll dive in. Awesome. All right. I see people have already started booking calls. Awesome. Cool. Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's go back here. So Sammy's asking, going back to the idea of selling high ticket items, I don't doubt my ability to sell, creating a relationship, closing sales calls, but I'm in the beginning phase of creating my business. I don't know what product or service to sell. Okay, so yeah, you're really in the beginning phase here, and that's fine. That's totally fine, right? So going with your business, look, you got to figure out what have you accomplished, or what have you done that's actually particularly not so easy for everyone else to accomplish. So I'll give you an example here. If you look at, here's a couple, here, let me share my screen here. I think this will be really valuable to everybody here. So if you look over here and you see, look at these two guys here. So these two people here on my screen, this is Matthew Farquhar. The guy's 22 years old, and this is Jason. They're 21. They're both career coaches. Matthew's doing $35,000 a month now with his business. He actually, I told him not to do this, but he took a break from university because he was growing his business so rapidly. Now, what Matthew does is, so he went to like a mid-tier university, and he ended up landing a job in like Wall Street, like one of those kind of big like finance firms, which is very unheard of. Right? It's very unusual for someone, because most of these big finance Wall Street firms, they only hire from like top tier universities, like Ivy League universities. Whereas he, who went to an average university on paper, ended up landing one of these jobs. And he's like, dude, I just figured out the formula of how to land high finance jobs. Do you think I could make a business teaching other people who didn't go to these top tier universities how to do it? I said, yeah, that's a fantastic offer. And he was like, oh, okay, sounds good. Literally came into the program, we started working together, and then I helped him create an offer. The guy's making $35K a month now at 22 years old, right? And he had to drop out of university. He didn't have to, but he told me he wanted to. I was like, all right, well, that's your decision. I didn't advise that, I swear. But he was the whole point of that. So basically, to answer your question here, Sammy, you got to figure out something that you have accomplished that you can actually bring to the market, that people that's of value to people, right? That's the most important thing. All right, let's continue on here. All right, so I'm scrolling back here. Guys, don't forget to book the call. I see another. Okay, awesome. I see a lot of you book calls with me. Awesome. Cool. Okay, guys, yeah, take advantage. Like I said, this call here is going to be as valuable to you as possible, right? Juanita, do you mind putting the call here, the link again? So, like I said, take advantage of this call. I'm really going to help you guys out on it. Like, just use this call as an opportunity for me to like give you an entire game plan as well. So let me.
Hi, I have a question. Can I talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Sarah. Hi, just a quick question. So when you mentioned your LinkedIn, about LinkedIn profile, that's kind of like a landing page. So how do you combine both if you're maybe in the market for a regular job, but you're also trying to build your side business, your own business to eventually become the main thing? How do you combine both without confusing people on your profile? Like, oh, she wants to work, but then she's doing this, this business by the side. Like, what does she want? Will recruiters, will it confuse recruiters? Will it confuse who you're, stuff like that? It's just confusing for me.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, the answer that I would say is just do one at a time, right? It's once you land the job, like, because a lot of people who I work with, like, they're in jobs, and then it naturally as well, right? If you're also looking for a job and starting a business, it's hard to do both at the same time, right? Like, even like taking the LinkedIn profile out of the equation, right? You're doing two things at once, right? So I guess my answer to you may not be what you would like to hear, but I would say pick one, do one until you accomplish that, and then move on to the next. Kind of splitting your focus, like chasing two rabbits catches none, right? Just pick one and then go all the way with it.
Okay. Second question.
Sure.
What do you feel about having a business page, like a business LinkedIn page? So you just forget about that and just focus on your own profile as you're marketing?
Yeah, great question. So, okay, so LinkedIn, that's actually a really good question. So LinkedIn, they don't really value business pages. They don't do much for you, to be honest with you, from an organic perspective, right? The reason is because LinkedIn, they've kind of made it like a personal page, right? If you notice, all the content that you're seeing on your feed is just from people. So LinkedIn doesn't really push like if you post your content on your business page, you're not going to get as many views. The only reason business pages exist is for pretty much two reasons. Number one, so that you can put it on your profile that you work for this company or this business page. And number two, you can run ads through the business page. But I don't recommend running ads, especially if you're just starting out with your business, because the ads are not, from my observation, LinkedIn ads are not as optimized and as cost efficient as organic. Like, you can make a lot more money and save a lot more costs just operating organically than running ads. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you want to republish your content, maybe on your business page, sure, it wouldn't hurt, but I wouldn't make your LinkedIn business page your focus unless you choose to run ads, which as well I would advise against, especially if you're at the beginning phases. Does that answer your question?
All right, thank you.
No worries. No worries. Awesome. Okay, cool. All right, let's carry on. So, all right. So I see Lance, Patrick, you book calls. Awesome. Looking forward to speaking with you. So, okay. So Lance answered, what advice do you have in helping us pick just one thing for me? I love well-being, health, fitness, mindset, but I also have 20 years of experience in wealth management, financial planning. And lastly, enjoy speaking to youth, overcoming adversity, not university. Good question. But look, here's the way you want to do this, is that you want to start specific and then you can expand out. You're not married. You know what I mean? You're not married to your offer. How many of you guys know Grant Cardone? Have you guys heard of Grant Cardone, like the sales guy? Yeah. So Grant Cardone, for those of you who don't know him, Grant Cardone himself, right, is a very, very how can I say this? Like, he's a very well-renowned, like, kind of like sales coach, right? Like, very, all this kind of stuff. Now, when he started, he literally started, I believe, teaching people like automotive sales, like how to sell used cars or something like that. Then as he got bigger, he got broader, right? So as you bring your audience, you can get broad. Look at Tony Robbins, right? Like, Tony Robbins is teaching whatever he wants. This goes back to what I was saying earlier. First, people pay you for what you'll do for them. Then they'll pay you for what you know. Then they'll pay you for who you are. Right? So with all these ideas that you have, I have no doubt in my mind that one day people will pay you for who you are. Like, you can, whatever you want to talk about, they're going to pay you for that. But first, you need to prove to them what you can do and what you know. And what you do and what you know, what I would say is find the most pressing problems out of all of these. So for example, you're mentioning you love health, fitness, mindset, but you also have experience in wealth management and financial planning, right? I would look into all of these and say, like, which one of these do people have the biggest pain point in, right? Because at the end of the day, there's, 3 or 4 offers that people really pay money for. They pay money to learn, people pay top dollar to learn how to make more money, how to improve their health, or how to improve their relationships, right? Those are the people, that's the thing people pour money into, right? So you got to pick which one of those 3 you're helping people do. Are you helping them make more money? Are you helping them improve their health? Or are you helping them improve their relationships? Which one of those? And you have to get to the end result. Right? You have to get to the end result of what people want out of those. Right? So that's what it's. I mean, I know you booked a call with me, so we can go over that on the call, and I'll explain it in more detail with you as well. Look forward to that. Awesome. All right. Sam, awesome. Looking forward to speaking with you. I see Sam just booked the call. All right. Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Any other questions? Pop them in. Let me see. Oh, I see Patrick's question. Do you suggest posting daily to anybody, or anybody also to the groups you're doing? Yeah, look, your main source, you can definitely post in groups, and I know a lot of people do that, and it's definitely going to help. But yeah, your main source of client acquisition will ultimately come from you posting on the LinkedIn newsfeed, right? Just regular posts, because when you're adding connections, when you're bringing people into your network, when you're doing all of that kind of stuff, the LinkedIn algorithms are very smart. They use AI now, which is great. They're going to start to figure out who your buyers are, and they're going to start to show your content to them. So don't worry. This is why I say don't worry about your views going down, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, people are so worried these days. I get messages all the time like, oh, my views are half what they were last year. I'm like, I don't think that matters. Like, it really doesn't matter. Like even my views on paper are down, but the sales are way up because the algorithms have figured out, like, I would rather my post have 500 views and I book 3 calls from it than my post have 10,000 views and I book 0 calls from it. Right? You got to ask yourself, are you trying to be an influencer or are you trying to be a business owner? right? And there's one or the other. Like the byproduct, sure, you're going to gain followers. You're going to become like, like whatever. You're going to become like a little influencer in your market and your niche and all that. But that's not the goal here. The goal is to run a profitable, successful six-figure to multi-six-figure coaching business. So don't worry about the likes and views. Just focus on the buyers and as long as you kind of keep that as your North Star, everything else will take care of itself. Don't get lost into the likes and comments and all that stuff.
Okay, so to that
yeah.
point, sorry.
Yeah.
So you talked about connecting with groups or finding groups and
Yeah.
connecting with those people.
Mhm.
Now, once you have that connection, when you post to anyone, will that post automatically show up in their feed because they're a connection, or don't they have to click that they want to receive the connect or the posts from the connections, or don't they have to do something so that it shows up on those connections that they at least see your content?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So the algorithms are always changing, but no, they don't necessarily need to like approve to see your content or at the beginning. But what happens is when you add a new connection, and this is kind of like an unwritten LinkedIn algorithm rule. When you add a new connection on LinkedIn, LinkedIn will immediately start showing them your content. Immediately, right? Even content you posted 2-3 days ago, they'll start showing it to them. If they're receptive to the content, not even if they like and comment, because LinkedIn can track like how long was this person on this post, like 5 seconds to a minute, 2 seconds. If they can see like, oh wow, like Barry has been checking out Patrick's content, they're gonna just show more of it, right? So they give you, with every new connection you get, you have a chance. Like they give you a fair opportunity for this person, because at the end of the day, you got to look at, you almost have to look at it from LinkedIn's side as well. From LinkedIn's perspective, right? From LinkedIn's perspective, they're a business, right? They're a publicly traded company on the I think the New York Stock Exchange, right? How does the evaluation of the stock work on LinkedIn? It's based on user retention, right? The more users that stay on LinkedIn, the more people that are essentially like on LinkedIn using it, the more the stock price goes up, right? So if you're creating content and you're keeping Barry on the platform longer, you're serving LinkedIn's intentions or goals, and now they're going to show Barry your content more because it keeps Barry on the platform. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. So really the groups is just to find people who are probably going to be receptive, but not to post or try to talk to them. It's use the groups to find connections that might likely be receptive to your content.
Precisely. Get people who you believe who have the highest probability of being receptive to your content, and then you naturally guide them through the funnel of commitment, right?
Okay.
So and that's the idea of guiding them through the funnel of commitment, where you basically take your best guess and say, okay, well, this group seems like my idea of buyers. Okay, cool. I'm going to start creating content with that. They start to like your content, comment on your posts. They start to look at you and say, oh, well, Patrick really has some good stuff here. Then all of a sudden, now this is the point where you could potentially start making offers, getting them on calls, getting them to turn into your buyers.
Okay, which then, sorry, a follow on is, if you only have the free basic, then you get 5 connections with comments, with like the text invitations per month. Where you said you would write, I'd have to go back in my notes, but you're writing something to them. You're not just sending without a note to connect. You're writing with a note and saying that. So, but you only get 5 a month. So the only option is to go up to premium, or is there another way around being able to connect with people with some sort of note? And I see that Antonio asked it, through the content. Is it through the content that you might say, hey, thanks for the comment, but they're not a connection yet?
Yeah, good question. So I would definitely so I think you're referring to the in-mail credits. So yeah, there's a limit to those, but LinkedIn doesn't mind, even with a free plan, that for you to add connections, as long as you're adding them, and not, because you can add people with a note on LinkedIn, and like even with a free plan, you can add like 10, 20 a day, as long as you're not like,
oh yeah. But you said connect with a message about the group, the person. Make it more personalized, not just send a connection request
Yeah, you can
Just-
send a connection request with a note.
Right, but you're limited on those.
Yeah, you're limited, but it shouldn't be that much. Like I believe you can do more. But even with that being said, though, I do recommend you all get LinkedIn Premium. It will just make your life easier. It's almost an unwritten rule. Like again, LinkedIn doesn't openly disclose this, but I've noticed that people who have LinkedIn Premium somehow have less problems. They have a better, you know what I mean? Like they have less, like, LinkedIn, they get better views, they get better buyers. I'm like, it's probably not a coincidence that LinkedIn is favoring the premium users,
Okay.
right? So it'll be worth it.
I have a question. I've been doing outsourcing for the last 16 years, and I'm at a point in which I'm looking for clients for BPO, for call centers, right?
Yeah.
So I get a lot from after reviewing my profile. They go, so what do you do? Do you either do recruiting? Are you an agency, or do you look for accounts for the BPO? So yesterday I had 3 calls, and out of those, 2 individuals were like, how much do you charge? And is it that I have to pay you or the company? So apparently my explanation wasn't clear enough. So I had to rephrase whatever I sent out to them in the chat. So how would you suggest for me to either go, as you mentioned, specific and then go broad? Because my experience is mainly with the outsourcing, which is very vast. I can do from customer service, tech support, whatever it is in sales, marketing, in any industry. But I can either do that broadly or go specific into serving one specific industry, offering one specific solution to whatever pain they may have.
Got it. So what exactly is your question?
So the question is, well, should I go broadly based on my experience with the call center and the outsourcing industry, or should I go more specific into like a niche?
And what exactly is your offer?
The offer is that I promote vetted remote talent from Latin America. So I can do roles such as customer service agents, sales, call callers, BDRs, SDRs, whatever you need. On the marketing side too, we can do SEO specialists, PPC, whatever the need is from the client's perspective. So my question will be, what should I do? Should I go just mainly at a niche level saying, okay, I'm going to focus on consultants, and this is the pains that I can solve for them, and create a strategy specifically for that, and then just go broadly?
Yeah, I would do exactly that. I think you answered your own question right there. In terms of it, yeah, I would be as specific as possible at the beginning. Just make it easier. I give, like, for example, you can make your offer. I give outsourced talent from Latin America to consultants looking to scale their business. And then that's your niche to begin with, and then naturally it will grow. But if you kind of just do like one size fits all at the beginning, there's a little bit of distrust that will be created because people will be like, what's the focus here?
Got it. Thank you.
No worries. No worries. All right. Well, that brings us to the top of the hour. So I appreciate everything. I appreciate you guys all being here today.
Barry has a question.
Oh, does
Barry
he?
has-
All right, Barry. So, oh, sorry, I didn't see that. So, do you have any reservation about going through the ins and outs of your process in coaching? What do you mean by that, Barry?
Sorry. Just that really, what you do, or should a consultant be concerned about sharing all of the intricacies of what they do in a general post, or should they leave some secrets back for the
Good question.
one-to-one?
Okay. Yeah, so the easiest way to answer that is, look, your free content tells people what to do, your paid content teaches them how to do it. So this is why I give the whole plan away. I'm like, guys, this is what you need to do. But then I sell the implementation, right? I say, this is how you get your buyers. Like, I'm telling you, this is the kind of content you need to create, right? I told everyone today. But then people work with me to learn how to do it, right? I just showed you the funnel of commitment, and you guys have a great idea of what it is, but you don't know how to do it. This is why people enroll into my program. This is why people work with me, because I guide them through that entire process, right? So teach them. Your free content tells them what to do. Your paid content teaches them how to do it. So you sell the implementation. Therefore, you have no limits. Give it all away.
Yeah, thanks for that. And to Patrick, thanks for pointing me out there, Patrick. What I'd say to you, what I did for a bit, when I'm looking at new contacts that I find in groups, when I got past that 5 message limit, I engaged with some of their posts and they responded to my engagement. So you can try that if you're not quite ready to go to the full-on paid subscription for LinkedIn.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's a
All right,
good idea.
I
Thank you.
got to run, guys. It's top of the hour. I got another call waiting for my actual clients. So I got to take that one, but I appreciate you guys all for being here today. For the training, like I said, just message me on LinkedIn for that training and I will give it to you as well. I appreciate you all for being here. You know, any questions, anything like that, just again, I'm an open book here on LinkedIn, so feel free to message me. And I know quite a few of you have scheduled calls with me, so I'm looking forward to speaking with you all, and I'll see you all very soon. Okay, so again, thank you very much for attending, and take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
Bye bye.